Hello, beautiful Taurus. Come sit with me because what the cards are revealing about your situation is both validating and powerful. Before we dive in, I need to be clear that this is a general reading for entertainment purposes. I'm interpreting the energy I see in these cards, so take what resonates with your personal situation and leave what doesn't. This isn't meant to replace professional advice, but rather to offer insight into the energies surrounding you right now. The story unfolding here is about someone who attempted to steal your energy, your light, your power, and the karmic consequences that followed when they severely underestimated who you are at your core. As I shuffled for you, the energy coming through felt intense, almost electric. There's this sense of someone who operated from deception and manipulation, someone who saw you as a target rather than recognizing the sovereign being you truly are. This person blocked opportunities, closed doors, created obstacles in your path, all while wearing a mask of perhaps friendship, love, or professional alliance. But here's what they didn't account for. You carry a frequency that cannot be permanently dimmed by anyone else's shadow work. The universe has a way of balancing scales, and this spread shows that their treacherous nature, their energy vampirism, their calculated attempts to drain you have all circled back to them in ways they never anticipated. You might have felt confused during this experience, questioning yourself, wondering why someone would go to such lengths to sabotage or drain you. This person operates from a core wound so deep that they genuinely believe survival means taking from others rather than generating their own abundance and light. They saw something in you, something luminous and authentic, and instead of being inspired to elevate themselves, they decided to attempt to extinguish your flame. What's fascinating is how the cards reveal that every action they took against you was actually setting up their own karmic reckoning. While they thought they were blocking you, they were building walls around themselves. While they believed they were stealing your energy, they were accumulating a debt to the universe that would demand repayment. This reading will walk you through exactly what happened, who this person really is beneath their masks, and most importantly, why their attempts to diminish you not only failed, but actually catalyzed your rise into a higher frequency of existence. You didn't lose anything real in this situation. You lost illusions, false connections, and energy drains disguised as relationships. What you gained is something far more valuable: clarity, discernment, and a deeper understanding of your own unshakable worth. The High Priestess appeared first, and I felt this immediate wave of validation wash over the reading. Taurus, on some level you already knew. You might not have had concrete proof, you might not have been able to articulate it clearly, but your intuition was sending you signals all along that something wasn't right with this person. The High Priestess sits between the pillars of light and dark, holding the sacred scrolls of hidden knowledge, and her presence confirms that you were receiving downloads about this person's true nature, even when your logical mind wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. The pomegranates behind her symbolize the seeds of knowledge, suggesting that this difficult experience was planting wisdom within you that's now ready to bear fruit. This person may have fooled others, they may have maintained their facade successfully elsewhere, but they couldn't completely deceive the part of you that operates on intuitive frequency. You might have noticed small inconsistencies in their stories, felt an odd energy when they spoke certain words, or experienced a subtle sense of unease that you couldn't quite name. The High Priestess is validating all of those moments, telling you that your inner knowing was always accurate. She represents the divine feminine wisdom that cannot be manipulated or confused by external deception because it draws from a source deeper than the material world. The moonlight illuminating her scroll speaks to how truth reveals itself when the time is right. During the darkness of this situation, when this person was actively working against you, you were simultaneously developing a stronger connection to your intuitive gifts. Every time you questioned your gut feelings, every time you tried to rationalize their behavior, every time you gave them another chance despite your inner warning system, you were learning to recognize the difference between your fearful mind and your wise intuition. This is invaluable training that will serve you for the rest of your life. The High Priestess doesn't waste energy trying to expose liars or convince anyone of the truth. She simply knows, sits in her knowing, and waits for reality to demonstrate what she already perceives. You have access to information about this situation that goes beyond what was visible on the surface. You might be putting pieces together now, seeing patterns you didn't notice before, or receiving confirmation through unexpected channels about what was really happening behind the scenes. The High Priestess guards the threshold between conscious and unconscious realms, and her appearance suggests that your subconscious mind was recording and processing evidence of this person's treachery, even when your conscious mind was trying to maintain hope or give them grace. Trust what's emerging from those deeper waters of knowing. Your intuition wasn't being paranoid or judgmental. It was being protective and accurate, reading energy signatures that your eyes couldn't see, but your spirit could absolutely feel. This person's energy theft was never going to work on someone as intuitively attuned as you. The King of Wands blazes into this reading with powerful masculine energy, and you need to understand what this reveals about who you actually are versus who this person mistook you for. They saw a spark and thought they could extinguish it, not realizing they were dealing with an eternal flame. This king sits on his throne decorated with salamanders and lions, creatures associated with the element of fire, and he holds his wand with the confidence of someone who has mastered their creative and spiritual power. He doesn't need to prove himself, doesn't need to compete, doesn't need to steal energy from others because he generates his own limitless supply from an internal source that cannot be depleted by external circumstances. Your true essence, your authentic power, operates at a frequency this person simply couldn't comprehend. They approached you with tactics that might work on people who doubt themselves, who seek validation externally, who can be manipulated through fear or scarcity consciousness. But you carry the King of Wands frequency, whether you fully recognize it yet or not. This means you have an innate ability to transform challenges into fuel, to alchemize obstacles into opportunities, to take whatever life presents and create something meaningful from it. The person who tried to drain you was operating from a wounded, fearful place, while you operate from creative sovereignty. It's like they brought a cup to try to drain an ocean. The scale of the mismatch was almost comical from a spiritual perspective. Every attempt they made to block you was actually redirecting you toward better opportunities. This king is a natural leader and visionary who cannot be contained by other people's limitations or sabotage. When one path closes, he immediately sees 3 others opening. When someone tries to diminish his light, it only makes him shine brighter out of sheer authentic nature rather than ego or revenge. While this person was busy creating obstacles for you, you were simultaneously being guided toward connections, opportunities, and pathways that were far more aligned with your true purpose than whatever they blocked. They thought they were taking something from you, but they were actually doing you a favor by revealing their true nature and removing themselves as an energy drain from your field. The salamanders on his throne are particularly significant because these creatures were believed to be immune to fire, able to live within flames without being consumed. This is exactly what you've done with this situation, Taurus. You've been in the fire of betrayal, manipulation, and energy theft, but instead of being destroyed, you've been purified and strengthened. The King of Wands doesn't fear conflict or challenge because he understands that these experiences only refine his power and clarify his vision. This person didn't know who you were because they were looking at you through the lens of their own limitations, projecting their own weaknesses onto you, assuming you would crumble or diminish when faced with their tactics. But you carry a core of unshakable fire that cannot be extinguished by anyone's shadow. The Wheel of Fortune spinning into this reading shifts everything, and when I pulled this card, I felt this sense of inevitable justice starting to turn. This is one of the most powerful cards in the entire deck when we're talking about karma and cosmic balance, because it represents the universal law that what goes around absolutely comes around. The wheel is constantly turning, and no one stays at the top or bottom forever. The creatures in the corners, the angel, eagle, lion, and bull, represent the fixed signs of the zodiac and the unchangeable laws of the universe. No matter how much this person tried to manipulate circumstances, they cannot escape the wheel's natural rotation. While this person was busy trying to steal your energy and block your path, they were simultaneously setting their own karmic wheel in motion. Every deceptive action, every manipulative move, every moment of energy vampirism was being recorded by the universe and added to their karmic ledger. The Wheel of Fortune doesn't judge or moralize. It simply ensures that energy returns to its source. They sent out treachery, manipulation, and theft. So the wheel is now returning those exact frequencies back to them multiplied. You might not see all of it happening because karma doesn't always unfold on a public stage, but their life is experiencing significant disruptions, unexpected challenges, and the natural consequences of operating from such a low vibration. The Sphinx sitting atop the wheel represents the riddle of existence, the mysteries we must solve through direct experience rather than intellectual understanding. This person thought they had figured out how to game the system, how to take from others without consequence, how to manipulate their way to success or satisfaction. But the Sphinx poses a question they cannot answer. How can you build anything lasting on a foundation of deception? How can you experience true abundance while operating from scarcity consciousness? How can you rise while pushing others down? The wheel is teaching them through direct experience that these approaches fundamentally don't work, not because of moral punishment, but because of energetic law. The Wheel of Fortune is also speaking to your own cycle shifting into a much more favorable position. While their wheel turns downward as natural consequence of their actions, yours is turning upward because you maintained integrity even when it would have been easier to retaliate or descend to their level. The figures rising and falling on the wheel remind us that elevation and descent are often happening simultaneously in different people's lives. As they experience the falling away of ill-gotten gains, false connections, and unstable foundations built on manipulation, you're experiencing the rising energy of authentic opportunities, genuine relationships, and solid ground built on truth. The universe is quite literally rebalancing the scales, taking back what they attempted to steal from you and returning it with interest while simultaneously collecting the debt they accumulated. The wheel turns with perfect timing, never early, never late, always exactly when the lesson is most needed. This person didn't know who you were because they couldn't perceive that you're protected by something much larger than yourself. When you operate with integrity and authentic power, when you trust your intuition, the Wheel of Fortune becomes your ally rather than your adversary. You're not outside the wheel's movement, but you're aligned with its natural flow rather than fighting against it like this person has been doing. Four of Cups appears next, and this card immediately shows me the core of why this person operated the way they did toward you. The figure sits under the tree with 3 cups before them, and a 4th being offered by a hand emerging from a cloud. Someone so trapped in their own discontent and limited perception that they cannot recognize genuine blessings or opportunities. This is the energy this person was living in when they encountered you. They were so focused on what they perceived they lacked, so consumed by their own sense of emptiness and dissatisfaction, that when the universe presented them with the gift of authentic connection with you, they couldn't receive it properly. Instead of accepting what was being offered freely, they decided to try to take more than was given, to manipulate rather than receive, to drain rather than exchange. This 4 of Cups reveals deep spiritual poverty masquerading as sophistication or strategy. This person has likely experienced genuine disappointment or loss in their past, and instead of processing those experiences and healing, they developed this defensive posture of rejecting before being rejected, taking before being denied, controlling before being surprised. The 3 cups before them represent opportunities and blessings they've already received, but cannot appreciate because they're fixated on some imagined perfect cup that exists only in their fantasized future. This constant state of dissatisfaction creates a void within them that no amount of stolen energy can actually fill. It's like trying to fill a cup that has a hole in the bottom. No matter how much they take from others, it drains right through because they haven't addressed the fundamental wound creating the leak. What's particularly sad but important to understand is that this person's energy theft wasn't even conscious evil in many ways. It's more like they're so disconnected from their own spiritual resources, so cut off from the natural flow of universal abundance, that they genuinely believe survival requires taking from others. The 4th cup being offered by the divine hand represents grace, spiritual sustenance, authentic connection, and genuine abundance that's available to everyone who opens their awareness to receive it. But this person has their arms crossed, their attention fixed on their limited perspective, completely unaware that something infinitely more valuable than what they're trying to steal is being offered freely. This card reveals why their energy theft was ultimately ineffective and why blocking you didn't give them what they were actually seeking. You cannot steal contentment. You cannot manipulate your way to inner peace. You cannot drain someone else's light and have it illuminate your own darkness. The Four of Cups shows someone creating their own prison of dissatisfaction, and no external acquisition can free them from that. They blocked opportunities for you thinking it would create more for themselves, but someone operating from this energy of lack and refusal cannot actually receive or hold on to genuine blessings anyway. It's not that the universe is punishing them, it's that they've positioned themselves energetically in a way that repels the very things they claim to want. They didn't know who you were because they don't even know who they are beneath all the defensive patterns and scarcity programming. The Ten of Pentacles emerges with abundant generational wealth energy, and the contrast between this card and the Four of Cups is striking. This is what you're moving toward, Taurus, while that person remains stuck in their self-created dissatisfaction. The Ten of Pentacles shows the elder figure standing in front of a castle gate with family, dogs, and the full completion of the Pentacles suit, representing material security, spiritual wealth, and legacy. Everything this person tried to block, every opportunity they attempted to sabotage, was actually part of your path toward building something stable, lasting, and deeply fulfilling that extends beyond just yourself. Their energy theft and treachery literally couldn't touch what's truly yours. The castle in the background represents foundations that have been built over time with integrity, effort, and alignment with universal principles. Their quick fix manipulation tactics, their attempts to drain or block you, are no match for the kind of solid generational abundance this card promises. You're not just recovering from their interference, you're actively building something they could never access or understand because it requires qualities they don't possess: patience, authenticity, long-term vision, and the ability to create value rather than just take it. The family imagery is particularly significant because it suggests that what you're creating has a ripple effect beyond your individual life. This could manifest as actual family legacy, or it could represent the broader impact of your work, creativity, relationships, and spiritual development. While this person was focused on short-term gains and immediate gratification through their energy vampirism, you were laying foundations for lasting prosperity. The Ten of Pentacles appears at the completion of the material journey, indicating you're reaching or approaching a level of stability and abundance that comes from having done the internal and external work consistently over time. This isn't luck or gift. This is earned through maintaining your integrity, even when it would have been easier to retaliate or become bitter. The dogs in this card represent loyalty and protection, and you have spiritual protection around your resources, opportunities, and energy that this person could never penetrate, no matter how hard they tried. They might have created temporary delays or redirected specific situations, but the core of what's meant for you remained untouchable because it's guarded by forces far more powerful than their small human manipulations. The Ten of Pentacles speaks to divine timing and order, showing that everything you've been building is coming together in ways that are actually perfect, even if the journey included this person's treachery as an unwanted chapter. This card also confirms that their attempt to block everything for you was actually them blocking themselves from ever achieving this level of completion and abundance. The Ten of Pentacles requires someone to value community over competition, to understand that true wealth is created through contribution rather than theft, and to have the patience to build something brick by brick rather than trying to steal someone else's castle. They don't have these capacities, which is exactly why they resorted to trying to drain you instead of building their own empire. They saw your potential to reach this Ten of Pentacles energy and felt threatened rather than inspired, so they attempted sabotage. But here's the beautiful cosmic joke. You can't sabotage someone else's destiny. You can only delay it slightly while simultaneously destroying your own path. The hermit appears with his lantern held high, and I immediately felt this energy of necessary withdrawal and the wisdom that comes from solitude. This card shows that at some point during or after this person's treachery, you pulled back from the external world to seek understanding and truth. The hermit stands alone on a mountain peak, holding a lantern containing the six-pointed star of David, representing divine wisdom and the balance of opposing forces. His gray robes speak to the blending of black and white, understanding that reality contains more nuance than simple categories of good and evil. This experience with this treacherous person catalyzed a period of deep self-reflection and spiritual development that has fundamentally transformed you. The mountain the hermit stands upon represents the height of consciousness that can only be reached through solitary climb. No one can carry you to this perspective. You have to walk the path yourself, making the choice again and again to seek truth over comfort, wisdom over validation, and authentic understanding over easy answers. When this person was blocking opportunities and stealing your energy, they inadvertently pushed you toward this hermit journey. You withdrew not in defeat, but in wisdom, recognizing that some battles aren't worth fighting on the material plane because the real work is internal. This time of solitude, reflection, and inner focus has given you access to insights and understandings that someone who remains caught in the external drama of manipulation and competition will never possess. The lantern he carries only illuminates a few steps ahead, which is perfect wisdom. You don't need to see the entire path or understand the complete picture of how their karma will unfold or how your abundance will manifest. You just need enough light to take the next wise step and then the next, trusting that the journey itself is revealing what you need to know exactly when you need to know it. This is such a different frequency than the energy theft and blocking this person engaged in. They were trying to force outcomes, control circumstances, and manipulate the entire chessboard. You learn to trust the step-by-step unfolding of truth, which is infinitely more powerful. What's beautiful about the hermit in this position is how it shows that their treachery served your evolution in ways they could never have intended or imagined. They thought they were diminishing you, but they were creating the conditions for you to seek and find a deeper level of wisdom and self-knowledge. The solitude this card represents isn't loneliness. It's the rich, full silence of someone connecting with their own inner authority and divine guidance. You've discovered during this hermit phase that you don't need external validation. You don't need everyone to understand you, and you certainly don't need people who operate from treachery and energy theft. You have your own internal lantern, your own connection to universal wisdom, and your own capacity to illuminate your path. The hermit also indicates that you now see this entire situation with much greater clarity than you did when you were in the middle of it. The elevation of the mountain peak represents perspective gained through experience and reflection. You can look back at their behavior patterns, their manipulation tactics, and their energy vampirism, and understand it not just as personal attack, but as the desperate flailing of someone disconnected from their own light source. This understanding doesn't excuse their behavior, but it frees you from taking it personally or carrying their poison forward in your life. The hermit's wisdom teaches that everyone is on their own journey, learning their own lessons, and while you can hold compassion for their suffering, you're not responsible for their healing or their karma. Queen of Cups flows into this reading with emotional depth and intuitive mastery, and you need to really feel into what this reveals about your true nature versus what this person perceived. The Queen of Cups sits on her throne at the edge of the water, holding an ornate covered cup that represents the subconscious mind and emotional wisdom. Her throne is decorated with sea nymphs and fish, emphasizing her dominion over the emotional realm and her ability to navigate the depths of feeling without drowning in them. This queen is the ultimate empath, the natural healer, the person whose emotional intelligence and intuitive gifts make them incredibly valuable in any relationship or situation. And this is exactly why this person targeted you for energy theft. This person recognized your Queen of Cups qualities and saw them as weakness rather than strength. They perceived your empathy as naivety, your compassion as gullibility, your emotional openness as a door they could exploit. People who operate from treachery and manipulation specifically target those with strong Queen of Cups energy because they know these individuals will give them chances, will try to understand their perspective, will extend grace and compassion even when it's not deserved. But here's what they fundamentally misunderstood. The Queen of Cups is not a passive victim. She's a sovereign ruler of her emotional kingdom with the power to include or exclude whoever she chooses. Her compassion is a choice, not a weakness. And when she recognizes genuine threat or toxicity, she has full authority to close those ornate castle doors. The covered cup she holds is particularly significant because it shows that despite her emotional openness and empathic nature, the Queen of Cups maintains boundaries around her deepest self. They might have accessed some of your energy, they might have created some emotional turbulence, but they never actually touched your core essence because you instinctively protected it. The most sacred parts of yourself, your deepest truths, and most precious spiritual treasures remained covered and protected even during their attempted theft. This is the wisdom of the mature Queen of Cups. She can be in relationship, can offer love and support, can navigate emotional waters with others, but she never loses herself in the process. The water at her feet connects to the ocean, representing the vast unconscious and the emotional currents that flow between all beings. This queen understands these currents intimately, can feel shifts in energy before they become obvious, can sense manipulation and deception beneath polite surfaces. Your Queen of Cups nature was actually trying to warn you about this person all along through emotional discomfort, intuitive red flags, and those subtle feelings of unease that you might have tried to rationalize away. The treacherous person didn't know who you were because they couldn't comprehend that someone with such emotional sensitivity and empathic gifts could also have steel boundaries and the ability to cut off energy drains completely when necessary. This card also reveals your path forward. The Queen of Cups doesn't become hardened or closed off after betrayal. She doesn't shut down her empathic gifts or emotional wisdom because someone misused her compassion. Instead, she becomes more discerning about who receives access to her emotional kingdom. She maintains her loving nature while developing stronger boundaries. She continues to offer her healing presence to those who genuinely value and reciprocate it, while swiftly removing herself from dynamics of manipulation and theft. This person's treachery has refined your Queen of Cups expression, teaching you to honor your emotional wisdom while protecting your energy sovereignty. You're not less open or loving after this experience. You're simply more conscious about where you direct that love and openness, ensuring it flows toward those who treat it as the sacred gift it truly is. Page of Cups dances into this reading with youthful, creative, and emotionally fresh energy, and there's this sense of new beginnings in the emotional and creative realms after the darkness of this person's interference. The Page of Cups stands at the water's edge with a fish emerging from his cup, representing messages from the unconscious, creative inspiration, and the childlike wonder that returns when we've cleared away toxic influences. This page is the messenger of the Cups suit, bringing news of emotional renewal, creative opportunities, and the possibility of experiencing joy and inspiration again after a period of having your energy drained. What strikes me about this page appearing after the Queen of Cups is how it shows your emotional journey through this experience. You started from a place of mature emotional wisdom, represented by the Queen, encountered this person's treachery and energy theft, and now you're emerging into a fresh emotional landscape, represented by the Page. This isn't regression. This is renewal. It's like you've cleared away so much heavy, stagnant energy that was accumulated through their presence in your life, and now there's space for new inspiration, genuine joy, and authentic creative expression to flow through you. The Page of Cups often appears when we're ready to approach life with more playfulness and less jadedness, when we've processed pain enough that we can open to possibility again. The fish emerging from the cup is particularly powerful because fish represent messages from the deep unconscious and spiritual insights breaking through into conscious awareness. After the Hermit's period of solitude and deep reflection, you're now receiving creative downloads and emotional insights that are guiding you toward new opportunities and expressions. These aren't the same old patterns or recycled ideas. These are genuinely fresh currents of inspiration that are only available to you now because you've done the work of clearing out the energy theft and manipulation that was clogging your creative and emotional channels. The person who tried to block everything for you was actually blocking their own stagnant, fearful energy. Once you removed yourself from that dynamic, the natural flow of universal creativity and emotional richness could return. The page's colorful, whimsical clothing speaks to emotional authenticity and the freedom to be exactly who you are without performing or protecting. When you were dealing with this treacherous person, you likely had to guard yourself, monitor your words and energy, stay alert to manipulation tactics. That's exhausting, and it stifles authentic self-expression. The Page of Cups tells me you're moving into or have moved into a space where you can drop those defenses and just be fully yourself again because you're no longer surrounded by energy vampires. You're choosing connections and environments where your authentic nature is celebrated rather than exploited, where your creativity is encouraged rather than drained, where your emotional depth is valued rather than manipulated. The Page of Cups is also bringing you specific opportunities and messages about new creative projects, emotional connections, or spiritual practices that will help you express and channel the wisdom you gained through this challenging experience. The Page is always a messenger, so pay attention to unexpected invitations, creative impulses, or gentle nudges toward new forms of expression. These aren't random. They're the universe's way of saying you've completed a difficult cycle and you're ready for something lighter, fresher, and more aligned with who you've become through this journey. This person tried to steal your creative fire and block your path, but the Page of Cups reveals that your well of inspiration and emotional richness was never truly accessible to them. Ten of Swords appears with such finality and intense energy, and when I pulled this card, I knew it was showing the absolute completion and ending of this person's ability to affect you. The figure lies face down with 10 swords in their back, the dark night sky beginning to lighten at the horizon, and still water reflecting this scene of apparent devastation. This is one of the most visually dramatic cards in the deck, but it's actually quite positive in context because it represents the absolute rock bottom point, after which the only possible direction is up. This situation with this treacherous person reached a point of complete ending, a moment of total clarity where you recognized the full extent of their energy theft and manipulation and made the final, irrevocable decision to cut them out of your life completely. The 10 swords represent every lie, every manipulation, every act of treachery, every attempt at energy theft that this person committed. They're all visible now, laid bare, impossible to deny or rationalize away. This is the card of absolute truth after a period of potential self-deception or giving too many chances. You saw clearly, perhaps all at once, or through a final betrayal that made everything undeniable, exactly who this person is and what they've been doing. That moment of complete clarity, while painful, was actually incredibly liberating because it removed any lingering doubt, any residual hope for change, any temptation to give them another opportunity to drain you. The Ten of Swords says this chapter is definitively over, done, finished, with no possibility of resurrection. The lightening sky at the horizon is what makes this card ultimately hopeful. After the darkest point of night, dawn inevitably arrives. After the worst has happened and you face the full reality of the betrayal, the only direction is toward healing and renewal. You've survived the worst of it. You've felt the pain of recognizing their treachery, you've processed the anger and disappointment, and now you're moving into the dawn of something completely new. The person who blocked everything for you has no power in this new day that's breaking. What's particularly powerful about the Ten of Swords in this reading is how it confirms the totality of their karmic consequence. While you're moving toward dawn, they're experiencing their own Ten of Swords moment where all their manipulations, all their energy theft, all their treacherous behavior is catching up with them in ways they cannot escape or deny. The universe doesn't mess around with the Ten of Swords energy. It's complete, final, and absolute. They thought they could operate in shadow forever, stealing energy and blocking others without consequence, but this card says their time of reckoning has arrived and it's thorough. The still water reflecting the scene represents how this experience has given you perfect clarity and the ability to see reality without distortion. When water is turbulent, reflections are broken and unclear. When water is still, it mirrors truth perfectly. You've reached a point of emotional stillness where you can look back at this entire situation and see it exactly as it was without the fog of hope, denial, or self-blame. This clarity is your greatest protection going forward because you've learned to recognize these patterns early, to trust your intuitive warnings, and to remove yourself from energy-draining dynamics before they reach another Ten of Swords moment. This person didn't know who you were, but through their treachery, they taught you exactly who you are. Someone strong enough to face difficult truths, wise enough to learn from painful experiences, and sovereign enough to walk away from anything that diminishes your light. Judgment rises as our final card with such profound energy of rebirth, karmic completion, and spiritual awakening that I felt chills when it appeared. The angel Gabriel blows his trumpet, calling the dead to rise from their graves and be judged according to their deeds. The families rising from their coffins represent resurrection, renewal, and the moment when everything hidden is revealed and everything scattered is gathered back together. This is the card of cosmic justice, divine timing, and the absolute certainty that truth will emerge and balance will be restored. What I'm picking up from Judgment in this position is that this entire situation with this treacherous person was actually a spiritual test and awakening for you. And you've passed with such grace that you're now being called to a completely new level of existence. The mountain range in the background of this card represents the overview perspective that comes with spiritual maturity. From this elevated vantage point, you can see how everything connects, how their treachery served your growth, how what looked like blocks were actually redirections, and how their attempt to diminish you actually illuminated your unshakable strength. Judgment doesn't ask you to forgive or reconcile with this person. It asks you to recognize the gift hidden in the wound, to acknowledge how you've transformed through this trial, and to answer the call to step into the highest version of yourself that this experience has revealed. The figures rising from their graves with arms uplifted in joy and liberation show that you're not just recovering from this person's interference. You're being reborn into a completely new understanding of yourself and your place in the universe. The gray skin becoming flesh represents the return of vitality, passion, and authentic life force after a period of feeling drained or deadened by their energy vampirism. You're coming back to life in the deepest sense, reconnecting with your purpose, your joy, and your sovereign power. The angel's blessing from above confirms that this rebirth has divine support and approval. You're not forcing or manufacturing this transformation, you're allowing it to unfold through grace. From what I'm interpreting, Judgment is also speaking directly to the karmic completion of this person's ability to affect you and the karmic consequences they now face for their treacherous behavior. The title of this card says it all. Judgment. Not human judgment full of bias and emotion, but divine judgment that weighs actions against universal law and ensures perfect balance. They didn't know who you were because they couldn't perceive that you're protected by cosmic forces much greater than their small human manipulations. Every attempt to steal from you, every effort to block you, every act of treachery was recorded in the universal ledger and is now being balanced with mathematical precision. You don't need to seek revenge or try to make them understand what they did. The trumpet has sounded, and justice is unfolding with divine timing and accuracy. Taurus, as we close this reading, I want you to really absorb what these cards have revealed. Someone entered your life wearing masks while operating from deep treachery and energy theft. They saw you as a target, someone they could drain and manipulate, someone whose light they could extinguish to make themselves feel brighter. They went to significant lengths to block opportunities, sabotage your path, and steal your energy because they fundamentally operate from scarcity consciousness and the belief that survival requires taking from others. But they severely miscalculated. They didn't know who you were, They couldn't perceive that you carry the eternal fire of the King of Wands, the intuitive wisdom of the High Priestess, the emotional sovereignty of the Queen of Cups, and the spiritual protection of forces far greater than any human manipulation. Every card in this spread confirms that their treachery not only failed, but actually backfired spectacularly. While they were attempting to drain you, they were catalyzing your spiritual evolution and setting their own karmic wheel in motion. The Wheel of Fortune is turning with perfect precision, elevating you toward the Ten of Pentacles abundance and stability, while they experience the natural consequences of operating from such a low vibration. Your period of withdrawal represented by the Hermit wasn't defeat. It was wisdom seeking and finding deeper truth. The complete ending shown in the Ten of Swords confirms that this chapter is irrevocably finished, and the Page of Cups announces fresh creative and emotional energy, flowing into the space they once occupied with their toxicity. Most powerfully, Judgment reveals that this entire experience was actually a cosmic awakening disguised as a painful trial. You've been called forth from the tomb of their manipulation into a resurrected version of yourself that understands your own worth, recognizes energy theft instantly, maintains boundaries as a form of self-respect, and operates from such authentic internal power that no one can truly diminish you without your consent. You're entering a phase of life where everything this person tried to block is actually opening up because you're vibrating at a frequency that naturally attracts aligned opportunities. The doors they attempted to close were never your true path anyway. The universe was using their interference to redirect you towards something infinitely better. Take what resonates from this reading and leave what doesn't, but trust that your intuition has been guiding you accurately all along. You knew something was wrong even when you couldn't prove it. You felt their treacherous energy even when they wore convincing masks. And you survived their worst attempts to diminish you by discovering an unshakable core of power within yourself that no external force can touch. Their attempt to steal your light only showed you how infinitely bright you truly shine when you stop giving your energy to those who don't deserve access to it. You're not just recovering from their energy vampirism. You're rising into a completely new level of existence where their frequency can't even reach you anymore.